Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming again to our Friday lectures here at Apollo. It's really nice to see you here. I know we're quite a small crowd tonight, but thank you so much for coming anyway. So I'm just going to briefly introduce our guest speaker as normal before we begin the lecture. So I'm sure most of you have read already online. Kamran Mammadli will be coming to talk to us today about the national liberation movement in Georgia, nationalism and minority rights in Georgia. So thank you very much for coming today. So just to tell you a little bit more about Kamran, he works with the Social Justice Centre, where his role is to kind of identify, analyse and bring into the political agenda different forms of power that result in oppression and exclusion of minority ethnic groups. Kamran is also one of the founders of the Salam Platform, which is an organisation that works on community organising and power building among ethnic minorities. So I think this talk is going to be a really interesting one, full of lots of historical as well as current information. And just to let you know, as normal, we'll have a little kind of time for questions at the end of the lecture as well. Just to remind you, we are, as usual, collecting donations for Helping to Leave tonight, and you can donate on the little box over there on the table. And Helping to Leave helps evacuate people from Ukraine, from particularly unsafe areas, and they work 24/7 to provide consultations to those seeking help, and it really guides them through the evacuation process and helps them with any humanitarian needs. So it's a really good cause, so please donate if you can. And I think that's pretty much everything from me, so I will hand over to Kamran. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me and for the work you're doing. I'm really honored and pleased to talk about national liberation movement and nationalism and the existing situation of ethnic minorities in Georgia. And I was just asking our colleagues who was the mostly the audience, and I heard that you are mostly university students from Britain who is working or studying Caucasus, post-Soviet countries, Russia, and it's nice that you are here and you are going to learn mostly probably Russian language and some other language, and I hope that you are enjoying your stay in Georgia. Today's goal, I don't know much about this project, what you're doing here. I didn't know before I asked, but I have a goal. I have my own goal, and for today's goal, I have the idea to kind of share the existing situation with you, because probably some of you are going to be scholars about Caucasus region, about post-Soviet countries, and you might affect the region with your studies, with your work. So it's really an honor for me to speak with you. And also, like, probably if I will be able to raise interest within you in your future work, you will be more interested about national minorities issues and ethnic minorities issues in Caucasus. And probably by the end of our discussion, we will have some, or meeting, we will have some time for discussion, Q&A, and with your perspective from outside, probably you might help us, ethnic minorities, or those people who are working on the issues of ethnic minorities in Georgia. You might bring some outsider perspective and give us some opinions, or we can cultivate together some solutions. But firstly, before we jump into Q&A session, I really want to share some of the realities, what we have in Georgia, and I believe that some of the existing problems we have today in Georgia in terms of integrating ethnic minorities, protecting the rights of ethnic and religious minorities, is related to Soviet Union and also national liberation movement of Georgia from Soviet Union and the first years of Georgian, let's say, identity formation, nation building process. And you have probably studied it, that's why I am not gonna, and I'm not historian, I might make some mistake at this slide, so I'm not kind of deep dive in this slide, but I will tell you that there was kind of fake internationale within Soviet Union. There was also Koreanization or Koreanizacja policy or perspective in Soviet Union in the beginning of Soviet Union. And as a result of that, I will share with you or with Paulina or with Anna one of the reading. It's unfortunately only in Georgian, but you might, we are planning to translate it into English, or if you use Google Translate, that text is very tiny, shiny document. It's just published on Social Justice Center website, and it is a new perspective. I don't know how much you know about the conspiracy theories or about Soviet Union or post-Soviet reality, but there is one of this kind of conspiracy theory that all the conflicts of post-Soviet countries was prepared or put there intentionally when Soviet Union was formed. The author of the text calls this conspiracy theory the theory of minds. And he says that he argues that the conspiracy theory, which is that Abkhazia has or had autonomous status, or why South Ossetia had autonomous status. Are you familiar with these regions? Abkhazia, South Ossetia, Nagorno-Karabakh, Transnistria. These regions, according to this theory, was intentionally had this autonomy by the so-called founders of Soviet Union because they wanted to keep Soviet Union together. So if Georgians one day had decided to leave Soviet Union, then they would have to face with Abkhazia or South Ossetia, or in the case of Azerbaijan, they would face with Nagorno-Karabakh, the same for Armenia. And that was one of the mechanisms to keep Soviet Union together. And this guy, the author of this paper, argues that it was not the case when Soviet Union was formed, but it was just because there was two big concepts, the internationale declared by socialist perspective, Stalin, Lenin, and so on and so forth, and also the idea of helping small nations or small groups of people to kind of have the process to pass through the history of nation building, as Marxist theory argues that to have communism at the end of the day, you need to go through the phases of history, which is feudalism, and after that there is capitalism, and to kind of increase the speed of going to communism, you need to have nations because it's one of the product or byproduct of capitalism. And he argues that it was not actually minds which was put within Soviet Union. It was just the conflict between these two principles of founding fathers of Soviet Union, Stalin, Lenin, and so forth and so forth. And as a result of that, this the clash of these two principles, we had the clash of or the collapse of Soviet Union, and Georgia, Azerbaijan, and other countries in this reality. Crimea was also introduced with this paper. That this reality we have, it was not intentionally a mine, but it was something, a conflict between two huge principles, two big principles or concept of Bolsheviks. Yeah. I'm not gonna stay for a long time describing Soviet Union because, as I said, I'm not a historian, but as a result of this clash between these two concepts, we had, by the end of 80s, we had national liberation movement in Georgia and elsewhere, yeah, in those member states of Soviet Union. And the biggest idea, the biggest slogan, if you will, in Georgia of national liberation movement was that we wanna end the Moscow rule. We wanna end imperialism of Soviet Union. We wanna end colonialism, and out of this perspective emerged this phrase, Georgia for Georgians. Yeah, Georgia for Georgians, meaning that at the beginning I believe that it was the perspective that Georgia wanted to be independent. That was the very idea of introducing this concept, that Georgia for Georgians. But as the national liberation movement grew and some other minds or people joined the movement, I believe at some point it became the idea for exclusive ethnic Georgian state and exclusive Orthodox Christian groups, yeah, Orthodox Christian Georgians. That became kind of the definition of this slogan and the definition of national liberation movement. You cannot see any single minority member giving speech in the independence movement. You cannot see Armenian, Azerbaijani, Abkhazian, Ossetian within national liberation movement of Georgia. And by that time, we have Georgia, which is more than 30% settled by minorities, yeah? Which comparing today, we have approximately 3 times less ethnic minority members in Georgia than it used to be in 90s. Very problematic person from my perspective in the history of Georgia, even though he is a national hero for Georgia, Zuyad Gamsakhurdia. His speech became the face of national liberation movement, and his articles, his lectures were kind of the framework by the end of 80s and by the beginning of 90s. His lectures, his frameworks, his perspective became the leading narrative for national liberation movement in Georgia. And it's sad that we cannot see the screen very well, but I will try to read couple of quotes from his speeches. In 1989, when National Liberation Movement of Georgia under the leadership of Zuyad Gamsakhurdia, Merab Kostava, and some other leaders, there were rallies everywhere, meetings, demonstrations in Tbilisi, in various cities. It was the same for every country, not every, but most of the country. It was the same for in Azerbaijan, in Baltic countries. But one of the and with these quotes, I want to show you how the rhetoric of Gamsakhurdia was changing before he got the power and he became the first president, elected president of Georgia, and after he became president of Georgia. So the first quote from him is related about Abkhaz. It's about Abkhazians. He says, and the speech is from one of the most crowded rally in Georgia, demonstration in Georgia. Historically, the quote begins, historically there was no Abkhazian nation. Abkhazia was the name of Western Georgia, but nowadays this name incorrectly is used about the tribe from North Caucasus called Apsua. We are not against their self-determination right, but not on the Georgian soil. If they want self-determination, they will have to go back to their North Caucasus. Actually, it's not a unique perspective of, or it was not crafted by Gamsakhourdia, this perspective that Abkhazians are not Abkhaz themselves, they are Apsuas, and Abkhazs are Western Georgians. It was the idea of Ingorokwa. I don't know if you have heard of him, Paulo Ingorokwa, very much respected academician in Georgian reality, but this theory that Abkhazians are not Abkhazians was a very, very weak theory, but unfortunately it was the period, and Ingorokwa wrote this theory or put this, I don't think even it was a theory, he just wrote in one book about this. It was written 50 years ago, but when the Soviet Union started, there was the problems and national liberation movement, this idea became very popular, even though historians, linguists, those people who studied Caucasus did not agree with, or nationalism researchers did not agree with this perspective, but it still was very popular among Georgian elite. And I think I blame a lot Georgian elite for that, that they embraced this fake narrative under the leadership of Zviad Gamsakhourdia, that Abkhazians are not real Abkhaz. They embraced that, and the Georgian ordinary population massively embraced that perspective as well. The second quote, here we are not fighting for the interest of Azerbaijanis, and whoever fights for it, they will be defeated. The interests of Abkhazians and Ossetians are wonderfully protected by Kremlin. We need to protect the interests of Georgians and Georgia. So this is the guy who became the first president of Georgia. And the speeches are before he is president, He says that I don't care about my citizens who are ethnically Azerbaijanians. I don't care about my citizens who are ethnically Abkhazians, Ossetians. It's protected by Kremlin or other countries. I'm going to protect only the interests of Georgia. The third quote is very also interesting. He's in Achara, in Batumi. I don't know if you know about the Achara region, seaside. And Achara was historically part of Ottoman Empire. It was occupied for 300 years. And Achara, they are Muslim Georgians. They have converted to Islam. And the quote goes, "This sacred land is watered with the blood of your ancestors. And why did they sacrifice their blood? For Christianity. We will never give Achara to anyone. Achara should get back to Georgia. Abolish the autonomy of Achara." So it is his speech about three different regions, three different groups. One of them are ethnic Georgians, but not Orthodox Christian. And he is the guy who is shaping the national liberation movement in Georgia after the death of Merab Kostava even more. But then there is a small, tiny, shiny change in the rhetoric of Gamsakhourdia. He's already president now, it's 1991, and he says this is his words. And the quote goes, The hostile sources spread the information as if I want to abolish the autonomous status of Achara. This is a lie, friends. This is disinformation. In fact, from the very first day after Roundtable Free Georgia won the election, I was advocating that issue of autonomy is a delicate one, and it is the people who should make a decision about it through a referendum. And no standpoint, even the standpoint of the president, can be imposed on the people. You see, after 2 years, less than 2 years, Gamsakhurdia changes its rhetoric. But not about all the ethnic minority or religious minority. He changed the rhetoric only about Acharans. And if 2 years before he says that he demands from the system, abolish the autonomous status of Achara, after 2 years when he becomes president, he says it's a disinformation. Back then they were fighting disinformation as well. And he says that Achara region should decide themselves. But what he did, the very same year, he abolished the autonomous status of, autonomic district status of South Ossetia. In December 1990, the new government of Georgia, under the presidency of Zued Gamsakhurdia, abolished the autonomous district status of South Ossetia. And in January, after 1 month, in 1991, Georgia sent troops to South Ossetia and the war started. The very first war in Georgia, after the collapse of Soviet Union, before Abkhazian war. And there was other ethnic groups in Georgia, yeah? Armenian ethnic group is mostly living in Javakheti region, where back then we had Russian troops. There was a base, army base. That's why the control over this region was not very strong. But Kwemukartli was very close to Tbilisi, and Gamsakhurdia and his government did not let ethnic Azerbaijanis to buy land, to purchase land in the beginning of 90s. In 1992, it's already, we have civil war in that period. After civil war, the new government introduced a bill which would not let the government, the state, to sell the land to farmers, to Georgian citizens across the border of Georgia for 21 kilometers. It's something like 15 miles or something like that. And the law said that you cannot sell the land on the bordering region for 15 miles, but this was in practice only in 2 regions. In Kwemukartli regions, where ethnic Azerbaijanis living, and Javakheti region, where ethnic Armenians were living. The rest of the region, where there were bordering region, but living ethnic Georgians, they didn't care. They were selling the land. In 1989, I believe, there was gathering in Tbilisi, in somewhere in Rustaveli, and there were no, I think it was 1990, something like that. It's already, the elections are coming up, and the still legitimate government, which is not, which is still Communist Party, is not accepted by this Georgian elite, and they are gathering. They have formed their own unions, their own organizing an organization, and there is this meeting, and in this meeting people know that there is small little clashes in Kwemukartli region, in Marnoli. And one of the very well respected Georgian leader comes to this meeting, takes the mic and says, I will say it in Georgian. I don't know, is there anyone who speaks Georgian in the audience? No. Okay, then I think there is no idea to say it. He says, there is no casualties how to say it in English? There is no casualties dead to Tatari. Tatari means me. Something like N-word in United States in English, yeah? This was the elite, the national liberation movement in 90s, saying that we don't have casualties, only 2 Tataris dead. Yeah, like Gamsakhourdia, during Gamsakhourdia rule, there were 38 villages which used to be called ethnic Azerbaijani names, but they changed the name. They decided that it's not a real name, and they changed the names of this village into Georgian one. During that period, those ethnic Azerbaijanis, ethnic Armenians who were studying outside of the Georgia because it was Soviet Union, everyone was studying in Moscow, Petersburg, Ukraine, neighboring countries. Georgia refused those students studying outside of Georgia to give passports, birth card certificates, and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, many ethnic groups, including Azerbaijanis, Armenians, Ossetians, were kind of forced to leave Georgia. According to Anjaparidze, one of the researchers, he says that more than 500,000 people left, and maybe it's not a big number for you guys, but Georgia, back then Georgia was 5 million, and 10% of the country left, and out of this 10%, 170,000 were Azerbaijanis. So this was the national liberation movement of Georgia back then. Minorities were not considered as full citizens. They didn't have right to purchase land. Even now, most of the land, and the reality is that, and I'm going to talk about it a bit later, but minorities mostly are living in a rural area. They are not working in public sector. Very few of them are working in business, but most of them are working in rural area. They need land, and even today we don't have like those lands in minority regions are owned by few people, mostly ethnic Georgians. Yeah, and you might say it was the period of very very turbulent period, collapse of Soviet Union. No one could decide or probably cannot make right decisions, or it was a mistake. But in 2009, I don't know if you have any interaction with Georgian academia right now, but there is one very brilliant professor in Georgia, Gianodia. He's really good. He knows his work. He's one of the best researcher, professor, academician in Georgia. In 2009, he wrote an article about Georgian nationalism. And he said that ethnic minorities are the internal other of the country and the problem of the country. And we need to deal with them. And we need to resolve it. And he said that if we don't deal with them and if we don't resolve them, Russia will use them. Very pragmatic, very realist perspective. And most of the time, Georgian legacy is that when it comes to ethnic minorities, Azerbaijanians and Armenians, and these are two different groups, yeah. Abkhazians, Ossetians are identified, seen in Georgia differently. Armenians, Azerbaijanians who doesn't have any conflict experience in Georgia are let's say, I don't know the right term for that. Yeah, the interaction, the relationship with Armenians and Azerbaijanians are very different. And when it comes to Armenians and Azerbaijanians, most of the time Georgian people, even academia would say that you have historic homeland. You are Azerbaijani, if you have problem, go to Azerbaijan. You are Armenian, if you have problem, go to Armenia. And in 2009, this bright mind, Gianodia, writes this perspective that minorities are the problem, we need to solve them, we need to resolve them. About the minorities, we have the dominant perspective, which is very much, it's changing, I think, but it's still there. The vast majority of the academia, the vast majority of political elites, the vast majority of journalists, the vast majority of NGO sector, and for sure the government and state security services and the system itself thinks that the minorities are, first of all, we can't see them. They're living in the village, they're minding their own business, we're not employing them, we don't have policies, we don't care about them, yeah? For example, in Kamran region, which is 42% minorities, 42% of the region are minorities, in 2018 published a touristic video, like people like you trying to attract you and come spend money, yeah? Go to Marnouli, go to Bolnisi, Dmanisi. You know, Dmanisi is the first place of humankind or something like that. They say it's a huge, huge thing. And it was an advertisement produced by the regional government, the governor office. And within the video, if you watch that video, you see that there is no single remark of minorities. Like, there is no mosque in the video, there is no culture of minorities, there is no how minorities are living in this region, as if it's pure Georgian region. Only churches, only Georgian tradition, but nothing about minorities. And most of the time, the government, when they make decisions, for example, when they make education reform, education is for all, yeah? But the Ministry of Education first decides what kind of policies they should introduce to the Georgian people, and then realize that there are ethnic minorities, so we need to do something for them as well, and they are adjusting their policies. That happened in a couple of years ago when Georgian Ministry of Education decided that they didn't need one of the exam. It was not a mandatory exam for students to get into university, and afterwards they realized that this is the only exam minorities are passing to get in university. So first they said we don't need, it's kind of GRE, I don't know if you have taken GRE, it's a kind of GRE exam. First they said we are getting rid of GRE exam, and then they said, oh wait, we are getting rid of GRE exam for Georgians but not for minorities. I mean, literally, when you make policies, and if you are in the government of Georgia, you never think about minorities. You never think. Minorities are most of the time being seen as a threat. With my speech here, what I say about Ziad Gamsakhourdi, I'm threat, I'm danger, they don't like it. And when you talk about problems like this, they think that you are someone who is against Georgia. Like, for example, there was this case in Akhalkalaki municipality. In Akhalkalaki municipality, let me tell you this, minorities, because of the Soviet experience, does not speak, the vast majority of minorities does not speak the state language, Georgian language, yeah? It was, lingua franca was Russian back then. Now the education system, because Ministry of Education does not bring teachers for them to learn Georgian, and I'm going to tackle that in detail in a bit, but The problem is that minorities doesn't speak Georgian language. And what the local government of Akhalkalaki was trying to do years ago, to put street names in two languages, Georgian and Armenian. And the governor of Samtskhe Javakheti said, you cannot do that. Only Georgian. But Georgian is like, can you read Georgian? No. No, you cannot. I mean, it's like for that people, it's the same. Yeah, you end up, you are coming from a village to Akhalkalaki, you need to take passport. There is, they say go to the street, you go up to, you look the street name, you can't understand anything because it's only in Georgian. But Akhalkalaki municipality was good, the mayor was strong, and he made it happen. Now there is two languages, Armenian and Georgian. That's very good. But in Marnoli, you cannot have that. It's better controlled, let's say better controlled Komukartli region. In Komukartli region, there are 3 municipalities where more than 50% are ethnic Azerbaijanians. In Marnoli, 84%, in Bolnisi 66%, in Manisi 65% ethnic Azerbaijanians. Till 2017, none of these municipalities could have a mayor who was Azerbaijani. Now there is only one mayor in Marnoli because of some political processes, but Manisi Bolnisi is still controlled by those people who are not ethnic majority in that municipality. Unfortunately, ethnic minorities, because of the systemic problem, because of many things, in Georgia are being seen as less educated, less cultured, less civilized people. As if a group of people or ethnic group could be less educated, less civilized, less cultured. But this is how Georgians think most of the time. If you speak Georgian, they will be shocked. If you speak English, they will be more shocked because you can't do that. You are not smart enough to have a position somewhere. You are not smart enough to work properly. And when I'm going to tackle the employment problem, I will give you much details about that. And as I said, if you have problem, go to Azerbaijan, go to Armenia. And then if there is a problem, usually if there is a small problem or a huge problem, they're going to deal with Azerbaijan rather than their own citizen. For example, last year in the Manisi municipality, for a couple of bottles of beer, ethnic Azerbaijanians and ethnic Georgians started to fight. The very next day, the fight grew into 1,000 Georgian on one side, 1,000 Azerbaijanian on the other side. In the center of the Manisi, police couldn't control stones, sticks, everything, metal, whatever they could, they were using against each other. They were beating each other, and police couldn't control. And Ministry of Internal Affairs arrived there in that city, and when journalists asks what's your plan, he said, we will not have any ethnic conflict in Manisi because we are strategic partners with Azerbaijan, and we're going to solve this problem with Azerbaijan. I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing when you realize that your own state, where you pay taxes, where you were born, where you go to school, where you vote, treats you as if you were the fifth colony or something like that of a neighboring country. And then if you complain about something, if you say, I'm discriminated, my rights were violated or something like that, they will tell you, you know, in Azerbaijan there are Georgians, they don't even have school. Be grateful that you have school. If you don't like, go to Azerbaijan. Yeah, I'm gonna tackle this very in a minute or so. As Anna, I think, introduced me, I prefer to go by Mammadli, which is an authentic ending of surname. But officially, my surname is Mamedovi. Ov is the aftermath of Russian occupation, and by speech and with words, Georgian government is all against Russian policies or Russian occupation. Yeah, they say that we want to end, finish, they occupy our country. And we Salam Platform, several ethnic Azerbaijanis, we gathered together. We said that we don't want to hold Russian endings in our surname. And it is the aftermath of Russification, Soviet policy. Let's change it. We went to the Ministry of Justice where they give the passports, and we said that we want to change it's not our authentic surname. I want to become Mammadli. And they said, oh, there is no law like that. We don't know what you are talking about. We gathered 27,000 signatures according to the constitution of Georgia. We visited 120 villages for 45 days. And we introduced these 27,000 signatures to the Georgian parliament. But what parliament did, they said, you can't do that. You are not allowed to do that. You have mistakes in these signatures. You didn't put date properly. You didn't put address properly. You didn't put phone number, even though this person didn't have a phone number. You had to put a phone number. It's strange. But they took down the bill, which we introduced with this 27,000 signatures. Fortunately, now with the pressure of international society, and that's what I meant in my introduction words, with the help of international society, they introduced an alternative bill, which is not perfect, but it's okay. COVID was a problem and a challenge for everyone, but for minorities, it was a huge issue. Minorities regions mostly does not have drinking water in the villages. And when COVID pandemic started, there were restrictions, and Marnoli and Bolnisi were actually declared as red zone. And the prime minister back then in Georgia, Georgi Gakharia, went to that region, but didn't enter, like it was red zone. He stayed there and he said, don't worry, Georgian people. We're going to do everything in our power to bring all the agricultural products to the rest of the Georgia. He didn't mention a single word about the health, well-being, or the problems in that region. As if he didn't care about its own citizens who happened to be ethnic minorities. Yeah. And during that period, there were restrictions. A lot of people lost their jobs. The Georgian government introduced a bill saying that we're going to compensate that. They said we're going to compensate that, but it was only in Georgian. So what we did, we went out and we registered 500 people. Fortunately, all of them got their compensations, but a lot of people did not, just because they were not able to fill the form in Georgian. And as I said, the system does not think from the perspective of minorities. Yeah. Education rights. Yeah. And you might think I'm exaggerating some stuff when I'm talking and saying that Ministry of Education doesn't think, or any ministry doesn't think about minorities. But bear with me and listen to this numbers, statistics. Yeah? In the municipality of Dmanisi, there are 55 villages. Out of 55, 45 are minority villages. 10 are ethnic Georgian villages. Guess how many kindergartens are in Georgian and Azerbaijani villages? In total, there are 9 kindergartens. Just give you a clue. There are 9 kindergartens in those villages, in that municipality, Dmanisi. 10 Georgian village, 45 Azerbaijani village. Any idea? They told me you are a very interactive audience. I don't know. Should I believe you or not? Yeah, 0. 0 in minority villages, and out of the 10 village, 9 kindergarten goes to Georgian village. The same is true for Bolnis municipality. Out of 12 kindergarten, none of them are in minority villages, even though 66% of the Bolnis municipality are ethnic minorities. One funny fact, it's really funny. In Sagarejo municipality, there are 33% of ethnic minorities, yeah? But the vast majority of Sagarejo is ethnic Georgians, 60 something. There are 29 kindergartens in Sagarejo. Out of these 29, only 1 kindergarten is in the village of ethnic minorities. And it's not operating. According to Ombudsman Office report, that kindergarten is not working. Overall in Georgia, access to preschool education is approximately 70%. It's different. I think it's, it's a State Department report. Overall, it's 70%, and ethnic minorities have 3 times less access to preschool education. PISA tests. Have you heard about PISA tests? Yeah, it's tests. It kind of checks your skills of understanding of the text as a kid. Yeah, school kids. According to PISA tests, ethnic minority kids in Georgia has 100-point less results than ethnic Georgian kids. Like ethnic Georgians has 330 something, and ethnic minorities have, ethnic Georgians 430, ethnic minorities 330 something. Approximately 100 points less than ethnic Georgians. As a result of that, you ordinary Georgian, or even you might think that ethnic minorities are less educated, less cultured, less civilized. But it doesn't mean that. It means that the system does not teach us properly. You follow me? I mean, like if you don't have kindergarten, and most of the schools in minority regions are damaged and needs renovation, and in even some cases, you cannot renovate in that school. For example, one of the village in the Manisi municipality, if you are a parent and living in the Manisi municipality in Safarlı, you will not worry about your kid getting proper education or learning Georgian. You will worry your kid gets out that building safely undamaged. Because it's like none of the standards considered that school or that building to get into. Like in Mame, for example, there was on the 1st of June, you know what day is, yeah? Like Child's Day or something like that, 1st of June. There was presentation, and Ministry of Education said that they are piloting 25 villages for bilingual education in minority regions. And out of this 25, and she gave the names of the schools. Out of these 25, I know exactly one village. The rest I'm not sure about. But exactly one village there is, Mamei, Kirovka village, where the school is not operating. There is no teaching in that school because it's so much damaged that they are sending the kids to neighboring villages. And the ministry says that they are piloting a bilingual education in that school. We don't have school texts. We are mostly getting our school textbooks from neighboring countries. We don't have teachers. Most of the time teachers are those people who used to work in Soviet Union at school, and the rate of pension, I don't know how to say it in English, like elderly people, I don't know, like those people, sorry? Retirement? I mean, among the teachers of ethnic minorities, the age of retirement is 30% more than the rest of the Georgia. Yeah, we have 1+4 program. I'm just building up, yeah, like preschool education we don't have, we have problematic school, and we have 1+4 program which says that in 2009 Georgian government said, yeah, we cannot teach you Georgian, we cannot give you proper education, that's why you have separate way of getting to high school. You will pass one exam, GRE exam, and you will have a preparation 1 year in Georgian, and after that you will become a student. Yeah? This 1 year is not because I am not capable of learning Georgian. It's because the system is not capable of teaching me Georgian. But it's still, you need to pay money. You are losing 1 more year because of the system, and you are losing money. And on earth, I don't know any other country which teaches its own citizens the state language for money. Most of the time, I know that Western countries, I know probably Britain is the same. If you go there, if you are immigrant, they will let you learn for free British. You go to Germany, let them learn for free. France, for free. You are immigrant, but you need to integrate. But in our country, it's vice versa. You are citizen. If you are minority, you need to pay to learn Georgian. Yeah, political participation. As a result of this reality, we don't have a real political participation. Minorities never apply to the local government. According to one recent research, approximately 70% of ethnic minorities have never applied for their personal or community problem to the local government. And almost 85% have never applied for the last 5 years. Can you imagine, like 85% out of 100 have never applied for the last 5 years to the local government, which is the vast and the most important level of democracy. Yeah, employment in the public offices. In the Manisa municipality, where ethnic Azerbaijanians are 66% of the population, there are 10% of the employees of the local government. In the municipality of Bolnisi, which is 67%, including Armenians, Azerbaijanis together, 67 or something like that, there are only 4 people working in the local government, mayor office, from minority communities. And it's not a shocking fact that minority villages does not have a kindergarten. I mean, yes, I'm not like here cultivating the idea that someone mayor or someone intentionally decides that I'm not going to build kindergarten to ethnic minority village, but if you have all Georgians in the local government who is deciding where you're going to bring the kindergarten, for sure you're going to build the kindergarten in the villages where ethnic Georgians living. So that's kind of my definition of systemic racism and structural discrimination. Probably no one intentionally says that I'm not going to help the school or I'm not going to renovate the school of minority region, but it's just happened to be like that because local government says and Ministry of Justice of the Education always says that we don't have enough money. We cannot build kindergarten this year, but we can build kindergarten in Georgian village. Yeah, land and agriculture, I kind of tackled that and I'm aware of the time and I don't want to get boring. Yeah, I think rights to health, reproductive and sexual rights. So imagine you go to doctor. Imagine you go to doctor I mean, for men it might be easier, but in my community, in minority community, for women who doesn't speak Georgian, goes to doctor, you need to bring a translator because there is no translation. And most of the time the translator is someone from the community, either father-in-law, brother-in-law, husband, or someone, you know, like someone you can trust. But you cannot trust, you know, trust. Neither local government gives the translation service, nor local hospitals gives the translation service. That's why most of the time healthcare system, people go to healthcare when they are dying. Yeah, and this is my final slide, and after that let's have a informal discussion, friendly talk. How can we get out from this situation? Environmental justice, yeah. We were just talking with Nika or the guy, I don't know what's his name, who took me to the bathroom. Nicholas, yeah. And about environmental issues. So in Bolnisi municipality there is this this company, RMG Gold, which is mining and looking for gold, aluminum, silver, that kind of stuff, you know, like expensive stuff. There is this village, village Mushevani, which historically called Dallar, ethnic Azerbaijani village. 99% of the village are ethnic Azerbaijanis. And right next to the village there is mountain. RMG Gold found, and RMG Gold is the organization who exploded one of the first, probably, it's not a mine, I don't know, one of the historically first gold mine, I think. It was world heritage, but they just exploded, so they don't care. They care about money, they care about gold, no heritage, they don't care. I mean, we lost that battle in 2014, I believe, but now they found the gold on the mountain where this village, Mushevani, is located. And they came to the people and they say, we're gonna explode this mountain, and if something happens to your houses, we're gonna renovate it. But when we make the explosion, we're gonna inform you before 2 hours, and you need to leave your houses, otherwise you will die. You might die, not you will die. And there was no translation, and the translator, or the guy who was someone from community and working for RMG, said that RMG is gonna build water. As I said, there is no drinking water in these regions. Yeah, he said that RMG is gonna bring drinking water to the village, gonna renovate the school because the school is in a bad situation. So you need to sign here. And people said, oh, very good. Look, this company is helping us. They signed it, and it happened that they agreed on, they confirmed, they made consent for this company to work. Now we are working with this case against RMG, against the government, because they are together, and the government, when we met the mayor, the representatives of the Georgian government, central government, they said during the pandemic, RMG was paying a lot of money, and they not even were paying taxes, but they were paying money beforehand. So beforehand, because pandemic there was economic problems, and now we cannot do anything like. And according to RMG informal talks, RMG says that probably, and some experts are saying that probably after 10 years, this village will not be, no one will be able to live in this village, because it's not an ordinary mining. Yeah, it's open field mining. Like you just blow up the mountain, and then you wash the metal with cyanide, and there is no, the land is affected, the drinking water is affected, everything. The air is affected, and after 10 years it will be unbearable to live. But I will finish with this. When you read the Gesetze, which is the document assessing the impact on the environment, I don't know if it's the right term, I don't know if anyone knows environment issues here. Like the document, before you do that kind of stuff, you prepare the document to get the license, and you need to put there what kind of effects you're going to have on the environment, yeah? The document does not say a single word about the village. A single word about the village. I think that's all, and this is my question to you guys. Like, which problem should we tackle first? There are plenty of. We now have started, after the Return My Surname campaign and signatures, we started Teach Us Georgian for Free campaign. We started working with the government, international organizations, kind of to put pressure on the government to make this one-year course program for free, kind of to put pressure on the government to build kindergartens, to think of bringing up new teachers, producing books. But I mean, this environment issue, working employment in the public sector. I mean, there are a lot of problems, which I believe, to sum up, is the aftermath of and legacy of National Liberation Movement and Zuyad Gamsakhurdia, who was saying Georgia for Georgians, even though today publicly no one agrees with that perspective. And everyone would say, oh, even Zuyad Gamsakhurdia didn't say that, but there are footages, yeah? There are documents. But within themselves, they have this very perspective that Ministry of Education, minorities is not my problem. Let me tell you something. Ministry of Health, they have many programs, yeah, B hepatitis and that kind of programs. When we applied to the ministry, I mean, within one of our projects, we kind of wanted to do an alliance of PWDs, people with disabilities from minority background, with minority backgrounds, and we reached out approximately 80 people. We met with them, we took a look at their documents, and we realized that approximately 6 to 8% of these people are not registered in the system. That they don't get pensions, they don't get benefits. They're not PWDs within the system. And when we addressed these issues to the Ministry of Health, they said, you know, we are not doing anything with minorities. You need to go to the Ministry of Reconciliation and Civic Equality. They are go-to people about minority issues. We are saying that it's not minority. It's minority, but it's your citizen. They are people with disabilities, so you need to have a program to inform them about the programs. But they're like, no, we don't do that. I mean, it's Ministry of Civic Equality, and Ministry of Civic Equality says that according to their perspective, by 2030, everyone in Georgia will be fluent after 8 years, fluent in Georgian. It's not possible. Like, I want that, but it's not possible because then you need to kill the elderly population or middle-aged people because they are not within the education system. That was all what I could tell you. Now I'm expecting your views and perspectives. Maybe you are interested in this kind of issues. Maybe you have worked back home about these issues. What can we do? Like which problem?
I just wanted to ask on your perspective a little bit on identity, because, for example, I was thinking, relating it back to British identity and British minorities, that people could be like Indian British or like Nigerian British. So when it's like the Georgian for Georgians, does that mean, you know, if you are from like an Azeri minority background or like an Armenian minority background, does that mean that you cannot be Georgian?
So, yeah, I didn't go to very theory because I just wanted to let you know all these details. Yeah, about identity, yeah. We have this reality in Georgia. Ziad Gamsakhurdia was the guy who kind of crafted the perspective of Georgia for Georgians, and then the rest was not important. Then there was the period of Shevardnadze, who said that I'm very good friend with Heydar Aliyev, and president of Armenia, and we don't want that. Like, I'm coming from Soviet perspective, we are not that nationalist. But the system continued. And then we had United National Movement, Saakashvili, who kind of introduced a new concept. Said that we are Georgian Azeris, Georgian Armenians. That was a new, very new concept for Georgia. And for some people it was okay, but for some people it was not okay, because some people were saying that you cannot have two nations. And interesting part of it is that actually, like, there is the difference between Armenians and Azerbaijanians. Armenians say that yes, we are Georgian Armenians because we are Armenians, we are citizens of Georgia, and we like that definition. For Azerbaijanians, it's a bit tricky because Azerbaijanians are saying, we are saying that we have never been part of Azerbaijan. And Azerbaijan in itself is not a definition or a term for ethnicity. It's a term for nation, something like United States, yeah? Azerbaijan has ethnic groups, Talos, Lezgis, Turkic groups, Turkic speaking language, but all of them together are making up Azerbaijan. And they said it's not like, it's not applicable for our context. We don't want to be some of the youngsters of Azerbaijanians, including me, we don't even use the term of Azerbaijanis if we are not confusing, and that's why I'm now using the term Azerbaijanis, but I think that I'm not Azerbaijanian. I am something different, which is Borchalı Turks, but because ethnic Georgians and the system is so much scared about this term, it's not acceptable for Georgians. I don't know if it makes sense, but the modernist government of United National Movement introduced that term, Georgian Azeris, Georgian Armenians, and it actually, I don't know, from my perspective, it didn't work because most of the time when you interact with Georgian, this term was okay, but when you interact within the community, no one uses that. Like most of the time, ethnic Azerbaijanians would say Borchalı or Elle, which is something similar. But it's too many details. Probably you don't want to know that.
I just wanted to ask, what prompted you to get into this line of work? How did
Come
you?
again?
Oh, how did you end up doing this line of work? How did you end up working for the defense of minority rights? Like what? Yeah.
Yeah. So I had never had the chance of having kindergarten. At school, I was not a good student. My teachers were most of the time nationalist and chauvinist people who were saying all the time, kept saying that go to your country. I was not good at studying at school, and when I decided, it was I think 10th grade or something like that, I decided to go to university, and my teachers told me that you can't do that, don't go. You are not capable of learning. And then I had luckily I had a friend who was studying at university, ethnic Georgian guy. He is kind of a bit privileged. His father was also studying at university. So I told him I want to study. Can you teach me how to write in Georgian? He taught me, and I ended up going to university, Tbilisi State University, by the way. By the way, all my classmates who were ethnic Georgians, most of them, it was a mixed class. So ethnic Georgians, ethnic Azerbaijanians. From ethnic Azerbaijanian, I was the only guy who took the exam, and then the rest were Georgians. All of them failed. I got into university. It was funny. Then at university, I was not good at English. I'm not still good at, but I was working hard because at school no one was teaching me English, even not Georgian. So one of my professor, English language professor, she told me that it's very pity that you are not Orthodox Christian Georgian. You are a very hard-working person, and I feel pity for you. And it was very sincere, you know, she felt it, but it was good and bad at the same time. I felt bad and good at the same time. And there were millions of that kind of stories, which kind of made me, my bachelor's degree is international relations. Because I knew Turkish and Azerbaijani, I thought that I might have become a diplomat. But then one of my friends at fourth year of university told me that you are too emotional. You cannot become, you cannot become a diplomat. And I said, okay, if I cannot become a diplomat, what can I do? And this became my job. Yeah.
You mentioned early on in your talk about how one of the famous Georgian academics described ethnic minorities as the internal other and a problem that we have to solve, otherwise Russia will. I wonder if you could elaborate a bit more on what this means, and also how this kind of prejudice within academia is still accepted today, because it seems to me quite unacceptable.
Yeah, I mean, he is, and the funny thing about Georgian academia is that there are two groups. One is the group which was in academia during the Soviet Union, and the second group is the group who is the result of Rose's revolution. Yeah, those liberals, those people who went to Europe, went to United States, get the education, came back to Georgia, made the revolution, and became the elite in the country. Yeah, and during the Saakashvili period, the Soviet experienced academia, they were not very how to say accepted or respected by the system, and Gianodia and people like Gianodia, liberals, modernists, if you will, progressive as they call themselves. Most of the time their perspective is not very progressive. I think Georgian academia has, and I don't know if you have experienced it, I don't know how much you interact with the universities here, but Georgian academia has a real and serious problems in terms of nationalism and in terms of setting realizing your positionality first and setting yourself aside and putting yourself aside and thinking about the issue, if it's political issue or social issue. I don't know, like I like some of his writings are good when it comes to democracy, but when it comes to nationalism, Georgian academia is very much nationalistic and chauvinistic. And that's why even Giannodia's, that paper was something new, something modernistic. Like it was very realistic perspective other than romanticized Georgian nationalism, which would say that there were no Abkhazians living in Abkhazia or Georgia, or there were no Armenians living in Georgia, or there were no Azerbaijanis living in Georgia. Like if you look at the Georgian academia or history books, you will see there is no single information about minority groups. And no one cares about it, like no one studies it. And because we have this huge gap between Georgians and minorities from the beginning, from preschool education to school and high school and university, there are no minority groups who are in academia who can face it and say, stand against this perspective, yeah? Like in Azerbaijanian, we have this kind of saying that they are themselves putting the music and dancing, you know, like there is no DJ, there is no one checking their truths. I don't know, now it's changing, you know, I might sound a bit exaggerative, but like it's something like that. I'll tell you something. Is it recording? Yeah. So this year I applied for a PhD program. I'm not going to tell which university in Georgia. I applied for a PhD program. I'm not going to tell you the faculty because there is only one faculty and that's university, so people can know it. They didn't accept me. They told me we cannot accept 2 people from one organization. But then there was a guy who was going to be my supervisor for my PhD program, and he told me that, and he's not Georgian, he told me that because I was your supervisor, I could not vote for you, but it's not the real problem. The problem was something different, and I'm sorry, it's tragedy. You know, like it's crazy. I don't want to give much more detail about that, but like this is academia, yeah? This is academia. Like those people are in academia. Yeah.
Firstly, thanks for the talk, and secondly, I was curious about the free Georgian education initiative that you're all working on, and specifically, is that to get the 1-year program covered? Is there also initiatives to bring more Georgian language supplies to schools at a younger age as well?
Yeah, that's a tricky question. I don't know how much, I'm not an expert of education myself, but I believe that the solution for this existing situation is bilingual education. Yeah, to teach minority languages, to teach Georgian, so these people can learn both of the language. And the problem is that if we ask for minorities schools more Georgian language, so currently what's happening, let me tell you this. Georgian Ministry of Education has decided that there will be additional language teaching in schools. And they decided somehow, I don't know why, they decided that if you are studying in minority schools, the school principal could reduce the hours of minority studying or teaching and put that into foreign language. If we had 5 hours a week for the national language, now we have 3 hours. You know, like it's not that there are not enough hours for Georgian language. It used to be. Historically in Soviet Union it was Russian, and then Georgia was very little taught. But now it's not about Georgian hours, it's about the people, the staff who are teaching the Georgian language. You know, there are no professionals, no teachers who could teach Georgian at school most of the time. For example, recently one incident happened. A member of local council who does not speak Georgian was at the same time school teacher who teaches Georgian language. Can you imagine that? It's just a position, people benefit from it. And I blame partly this situation to my community as well, because they cannot fight this kind of people. And that's what we do. When Anna was introducing, we try to build power within the community. Because I explained everything, and I blame most of the time everything on Gamsahurdia, but what happened as a result of Gamsahurdia, as a result of this nationalistic and chauvinistic perspective, ethnic minorities had internalized that they are guests in this country. They internalized that it's okay to not to have kindergarten. They internalized that there might be someone who I don't know, who extracts all the resources. It's okay, because you should not speak. Otherwise, you will have no casualty by 2 Tatari dead. You know what I mean? This is the dynamic which kind of follows us. This is the mindset which is following us, and that's why we at Salam Platform with other youth, we try to build power. We try to say that this is not acceptable. We should not normalize this situation, and we should speak up, and we should demand our rights. We should demand for change. And when we demand this 1+4 program, 1 year at university to be free, it's easier to achieve, you know. It's tactical, not very strategic. It's tactical step. Because if I'm asking to the Ministry of Education to build schools, they will say we don't have money, no money in our pocket. Local government for kindergarten, they will say no money. But this issue is very sensitive at the same time. Like, I don't know, like I was trying it as well during my speech. Like, there is no single country on earth. This is very good argument, yeah? No single country on earth to teach its citizens the state language for money. It's a very strong argument. If you win this, then you bring up also the kindergarten issues. It's tactical, but yeah, we want teachers, but it needs reform to grow up this kind of teachers. Yeah. For example, myself, I took the teacher's exam last year, and out of 55 points, I took 53 points. From the exam, I did very good, and like approximately 10 people with my friends within Salam Platform, all of them, we took together the test. We applied to schools, they're not accepting us. The principal, because the Ministry of Education, you know, it's this how the system, and also there is one more thing which is very political, I didn't want to get into it, but to become a school teacher, it's authority. You have authority in the village, yeah? You are a school teacher. People follow you. And then what happens, almost all the government uses this authority in the election. But people like me are not going to be used or are not going to be part of the rigging the election in minority regions. That's why all the doors are shut in my face, in my friend's face, when it comes to schools. It's systemic, you know. It's like you say, oh, this is you know. I need solutions, friends. Really, I'm not joking. I'm like, what do you think? What you gonna do about? I mean, can you do something like, I don't know, if there is opinion, really, and don't be shy or don't think that, oh, I'm outsider, we have filters for that, don't worry. Just give us opinions, what can we do?
I have a question. So,
do you mind me handing over this? I'm sorry, it's for recording.
But I'm just wondering if, like you talk about the Georgia for Georgians, and so it's basically marrying ethnicity and nationality together.
Religion and, yeah.
Or just
yeah.
ethnicity, right? So like Georgia is only ethnic Georgians and everyone else, like, off you go. So does that predate at all, that sentiment? Does that predate this sort of Georgia for Georgians campaign and like...
yeah, I got your question.
Yeah, I'm just curious how long that's
been. I'm not a historian. I cannot answer to this question like 100%, but from my understanding, no. It was emerged during national liberation movement. Like Georgia had first republic in 1918 when Tsarist Russian Empire, yeah, Tsarism, failed, and before Russia or Soviet Union occupied Georgia in 1921 for 3 years, we had a republic, socialist republic. They were Mensheviks. And if you take a look at the constitution of the first Republic of Georgia, you will be shocked how progressive they are. They have specifically put in constitution that there should be quotas for minorities. There should be local languages for minorities. They should build schools for minorities. Minorities should have political participation. They should have voice. It's beautiful. And they tried to implement it. It was not only on paper. During that period, I don't remember exact year, on earth, the first Muslim elected woman was ethnic Azerbaijani from Georgia. First Muslim ethnic Muslim woman. It's a historic fact, and Georgian people are very proud of it. It's oxymoron, yeah? Like now you are nationalistic, but you're still like, because you are that civilized, that this uncivilized people, from this uncivilized people, you bring up a woman, Muslim, and may put her in position. But she was elected actually from the community. So, and then there were several people from minority community. And the term borchalo, getting back to your question, is used back then by the Georgian Republic. I mean, it's not, we are not bringing that term out of nowhere. And kind of to conclude, to sum up the question, I believe it was that narrative was emerging during the Soviet period, and then as a result of national liberation movement, it kind of became a thing, Georgia for Georgians.
I had a question about women in these like ethnic minority villages, and if your work includes or you would like to incorporate any programs to specifically support women and girls from these ethnic minority groups, because it seems to me that they are probably among the most disadvantaged people living in Georgia, and I think often education of women is one of the most important things in achieving equality for minority groups in general. So I was just wondering what your thoughts are on that, if you know any statistics about how women specifically are affected, and if you hope to do any work for women in the future.
So the thing is that I usually, within Salam Platform, I'm not the right person to speak about minority women issues, and I'm aware of my positionality, and I realize that I'm comparing to ethnic minority women, I'm very much privileged guy. That's why it's very hard for me to elaborate on that question. But let me tell you this: last year, with the Ombudsman Office, we did kind of research on. So the thing in Georgia about minorities and about the media and about NGOs, even international organizations, is that if you're going to work about minorities issues, then the problem is early marriage in minority regions. Yeah, that's partly true, and also the problem, this early marriage issue, is everywhere in Georgia. And we try to look at why the parents of these kids let their, I mean, I have a daughter, 7 years old, and I can never understand why, in what circumstances I'm gonna let my daughter marry in early age. I'm not talking about like, I'm not letting her marry before, like I had a bad experience with marriage, but I'm not gonna let her marry before 18. Not I'm gonna make her marry when she's 13, yeah? And that's why we did a research of parents who made their kids marry at the early age. And the problem was that the parents were saying that, you know, I live in a village. In this village there is no lights outside. In this village there is no proper education. In this village there is no possibility of my kid getting job. And now I'm summarizing, yeah? For example, there was this case, a guy said that my neighbor's daughter went to university. She's 24 now, she doesn't have a job, she's not married. What she's doing nothing. This is very stereotypical perspective, but this is the reality, yeah? One guy said that I'm afraid of my daughter getting kidnapped or getting attacked in the dark when she's getting back home from university. There is no public transportation in these villages, yeah? You need to walk maybe 3 kilometers to home from the highway. And he says that I don't have a car, I don't have money, what can I do? Yeah, this is, and for sure there are many parents, or some parents, I don't know the numbers, who could be rich and does not let their daughters to university or to study. Like my parents were not very supportive of me when I decided to study, because I'm material for my family. They brought me up. They know that they cannot, let's say, they need me to survive, to eat, to work. And then I'm deciding to study. How come? They need help in their family work, in the land work, yeah? I'm sure I didn't respond to your question because I'm not really the right person to do that, but there are a lot of challenges. I agree with you that minority women are in a much more worse situation in terms of discrimination, systemic problems. We were doing a research on political participation and in Marnauli municipality, and one of women said that who is just selling stuff in the market, yeah, like in the dirt, I don't know, somewhere in the village. That ethnic Georgian men are most of the time treating them disrespectfully, as if they're minority and women, yeah? Most of the time, because of these social economic problems, parents decide to send to school their sons rather than their daughters. And then like sexual violence is a huge problem. Gender-based violence, not sexual violence. Gender-based problem is a huge problem for Georgia in general. Like almost every day we got the cases of femicide. And minority groups are not an exception. They are not an exception. And then there is this problem as well. Like I forgot to say, with this research, what we were looking with parents and then also the system, yeah? And we interviewed the police, the social workers, the local government, social workers and that kind of. And what was usually the case, the police was not supportive of the family who wanted to put in prison the guy, yeah? For example, I don't know how much you know about it, the early marriage cases most of the time, usually in Georgian society, in ethnic minority Georgia society, is that you walk in the street, someone comes, puts you in the car, and done. Usually, like the system, if there is the system, we have a good law. And I forgot to say, in Georgia, everything is written in a very good. Like the law, you look at the law, no discrimination cases at all. It's impossible. But in practice, yeah, you are walking in the street, someone put you in the car, you are 13 years old, the police comes and says, you will be friends, you will be relatives. The system, you know, the system kind of supports these cases. But on paper, if the families or the kid will say that they are taking this case to court, then this guy will go to prison, should go to prison. But most of the time police doesn't care, social worker don't care, because most of the time social worker, police officers, they're not minority members. And social workers were saying that we cannot work with this community. They are uncivilized people. We cannot talk with them. You know, because you don't speak the language, and they don't understand you, you don't understand, and then you blame them. It's very easy. Yeah. I don't know. I'm really. I don't feel comfortable to respond to that question. I'm just saying things from here and there. I don't know if it makes sense or not.
Just a clarifying question. Can you elaborate on the scenario that you just were saying where someone would get like abducted in a car?
No, it's not about you. Don't worry. I mean, it happens usually in villages.
But I'm just curious now. What is this scenario? Why is someone getting abducted?
It's because they want to get. I mean, it's not purely for ethnic minorities. It's among ethnic Georgians too. The intention is to getting married.
To get married?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, that's helpful for me because that's not a normal scenario where we come from.
No, it's not.
Another question.
There is nothing to worry about.
Okay. Another question is, when did the common language of Russian kind of deteriorate, I guess? So like
is there a certain age at which people still speak Russian that are ethnic minorities? Like, do your grandparents speak Russian?
My grandparents passed away for a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, those people who went to school, who are probably like at the age of 40, 45, they do speak Russian.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for this talk. I think it's great to have such an authentic account of these kind of issues. My question is about the mainstream or majority Georgian society, because as I was listening to you speak, I started thinking about whether the average Georgian, for example in Tbilisi, would have any idea about these kind of statistics that you were sharing with us. And my impression is that they would probably not. And I would be curious to know whether you would see any kind of capacity or openness or readiness to be educated in mainstream Georgian society about these issues if there was someone to tell them. What would be the response? Like, could there be a kind of response that would result in more support or more light and attention on these issues?
Yeah, let me give you another statistics about that. In Georgia, approximately 30% of Georgian, ethnic Georgians, think that if you are not ethnic Georgian, you don't have right to be Georgian citizen. 30%. And 50% of Georgians think that if you are not Orthodox Christian, you don't have right to be Georgian citizen. I mean, it's huge. Like almost every one person out of two think that I should not be Georgian citizen. That's the average Georgian. About the numbers, they don't. Even if they knew, they would tell me, average Georgian, we are talking about average Georgian, they would tell me, go back to Azerbaijan. If you want kindergarten, go to Azerbaijan, they will give you kindergarten. If you don't like Georgian, I mean, I have to be grateful, and every step I take in Georgia, I have to say that I admire Georgia, I love Georgia, I'm dying for Georgia. I mean, seriously, like that's the expectation from Georgian people, that I should be grateful that I'm living and they let me live in Georgia. And let my parents and grandparents and grandparents and 7th generation we have been living in Georgia, but still it's not enough. Like I need to be grateful. They would not care, honestly. Like with that spirit, we organized solidarity tours. We have this thing. We gathered together Armenians, Azerbaijanis, and Muslim Georgians. We got together, we said that, okay guys, we need to do something about these numbers, 30%, 50%. We need to reach out to Georgian population as well. And we said that let's organize solidarity tours. Let's go Zugdidi, Svaneti, Kakheti, Gori, I don't know, these places, Kutaisi, where ethnic Georgians live and there are no minorities. We went there. In Svaneti, I almost got kicked. Seriously, they were gonna beat me just because I was like saying that we don't. And then there was this guy, Muslim Georgian, my friend, he's from Achara, he's Muslim. He said that Muslims in Georgia doesn't have right to build mosques. I didn't say that, but that's true. I mean, if you are Muslim, it's very hard to get mosques. I don't know if you know about Batumi case, Batumi mosque case. It's on the Supreme Court level. We won both levels in the court, but still the local government, the Batumi municipality, doesn't let Muslims to build mosque. And he said that we don't have a right to build mosques in Georgia. And one of the guy from audience, she said that it's good for you. Like for centuries you were killing, beating, torturing, raping Georgian women. Now you want to have mosque in Georgia? This is Georgian soil, you cannot have. She's 18 years old. First year student in university. She says that it's good for you, and she cannot digest or realize that she's speaking with an ethnic Georgian who is not like someone like me. You know what I mean? And one of the women told him that in his speech, he's Muslim, he's ethnic Georgian, like no whatsoever kind of blood in his blood. He's just Muslim. He's pure Georgian. Pure Georgian. She said that I read danger in your talk. That's the average Georgian. Yeah, I mean, that kind of racist people are everywhere. Like, I'm sure you have seen the desegregation process of schools in the United States, how white people are fighting against integrating schools, or how people were beating lunch counters in the United States, in South. I'm sure there are a lot of racists and Muslim haters in United Kingdom, in Britain. With these numbers, this talk, I'm not saying that Georgian people are bad. It's just the reality we are tackling with, and it's just the situation we are thinking how we can change and make a more inclusive, diverse society. Because I don't have another homeland. I mean, I'm from here. I don't know, have you ever, anyone read James Baldwin? Yep. Okay, good. I like that. So in one of his, so James Baldwin says, it's shocking when you grow up in a country, at school you sing the hymn, national anthem, yeah, you admire the flag, and then the flag does not accept you, the national anthem does not accept you. I think there is huge differences between black people's struggle in the United States and our struggle in Georgia, but there are very tiny, shiny similarity as well, which is this, yeah, like we ethnic minorities, we try to integrate. We kind of, there is a locked up door, and then there are people in the room, we are knocking, let us in, teach us Georgian for free. They occupy our surname. Before you go to Sokhumi, they occupy here. My surname is occupied, and it will be in your interest too, yeah? Georgian people will say, oh, this is very good government, they're occupying the surnames of these uncivilized people. Ordinary people think like that. Will think like that, or might think like that. You know, this kind of problems we are facing, we're saying that teach us kindergarten. I mean, we are not asking anything bad. I mean, we want to get education and then serve the country, pay the taxes from the perspective of liberalism, yeah? Pay the taxes, help the economy grow. We want that, but unfortunately, I don't know, like, we are still danger and threat for our country. And this is what it is in many countries as well. Yeah, I fully understand that Georgia is not unique in that reality, but every struggle is unique for the people who are in. And I hope you are the people in future, if you're gonna focus on Georgia and work on Georgia, because let me tell you this, and probably we're gonna wrap up the, international organizations, people like you are very much respected and appreciated in Georgia. Like, very tricky thing, I don't know, like I've lived here, I've lived here for a long time, and you are much more respected and appreciated than me. That's because you are Western, yeah? You are from Britain, you are from Europe, and if something happens tomorrow, you will end up in an international organization working on Georgia. You will have a strong voice. People will listen to you. Georgian people, Georgian government will listen to you. And unfortunately, even today, like UNICEF, for example, has never brought up the statistics in the face of Georgian government. It was us who started this campaign and visited each and every villages and saw that there is this huge difference between kindergartens. It was us who started talking about schools and damaged schools. These international organizations have huge impact on Georgia. I mean, if you want to make a huge change through international organizations, you are right if you go to Georgia, because it's easier. The Georgian government is not like Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan doesn't care. Other countries, most of Central Asian countries don't care. I don't know, Moldova, Ukraine, but mostly they don't care. But Georgia, they're scared of international organization. If you are in European Union or UNICEF, UN, you are working with them and you report something not good about Georgia, they will listen. They don't listen to us. Thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much for coming. It's been such a pleasure to hear you talk, and I think we've all learned a lot. I mean, I definitely have myself. So yeah, thank you again so much for coming, and if you can donate, if you're able to, again, we have that box on the table over there. And next week, same time on Friday, we'll be having another lecture here. It's Taya Kamashadze, I think, who's coming. She's an anthropologist, so that will also be very interesting. But yeah, thank you so much again, and
thank you.
Have a good evening.